All right, guys, how's everybody doing? We have an awesome guest today in the show. This is the Business Trap, where we are providing advice and previous experience that we had, and hopefully that can help you guys improve yourselves, improve your situation. And we have Victor Cirilo today with us. And Victor, I don't want to do a lot of talking, so please let our audience know who you are and
Sure.
where you're at right now.
Carlos, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. It's my pleasure to be here and just to share with your audience a little bit about, some of our paths and careers out there that can hopefully help motivate or provide interest into other areas that we may not have come across. Again, thank you much, and I appreciate you having me.
All right. Awesome. Awesome. So for those of you, a quick intro on Victor. He's the director of the Housing Authority in Newark. He's been in public service for a really long time. But I feel, and I wanted to bring Victor on the show because I think he's an excellent leader and he has acquired a lot of knowledge throughout the years on how to build a team and how to manage around the public sector and also the private sector. So, Victor, tell us
Sure.
a little bit about your experience
Right.
and what brought you to where you're at right now.
Sure, sure. And thank you, Carlos. And you know what? You make an excellent point about leadership, and I appreciate your kind words. Uh, I mean, I don't know if leaders are made or leaders are built. That's a discussion for some other time. I'm sorry, whether leaders are built or leaders are born, right? We can talk about that some other juncture. But in my experience, if we want to talk about leadership, I've always been that person that was into the detail. I wanted to know a little bit extra, from I'm being shown like a certain blueprint. I'm being shown a certain a regulation, rule, or a certain law. I wanted to know what's behind the law. I always want to know what's behind that regulation. And over time, that made me, become more knowledgeable of a certain subject matter, and then your leadership skills take over from there. So I was fortunate to parlay that into positions of leadership and folks developing the respect from our decision makers, our leaders, our supervisors, our bosses, so that we can improve ourselves, not only professionally but personally. So that has been a blessing in my life to have that attribute, to look above and beyond, what you see, right? Always ask questions. I had an eighth grade teacher, Mr. Rotella. I remember
Wow.
public school number 5 in West New York, and he was the first one that asked us for the first time not to not to believe, right, what's being presented. Always ask questions: why, or how, who's being affected, etc. So I've always kept that in the back of my mind, and that's always driven me. So that's one factor. The other factor is, Carlos, and I'm sure you've experienced that in your life. You're blessed to come across people that could be good mentors for you. And I always listen, right? I'm not I don't I'm a very humble person. I don't consider myself the smartest person in the room. There's always something else that people know that I don't know. I want to listen and I want to learn and I want to ask questions. And that respect for those folks that really want to share has really helped me become the leader that I am. From my church pastor when I was a kid, to a mayor of West Orange, to an executive director of a housing authority, right? Folks like that have really helped me in my trajectory, become the person that I am, and be in the situation or in the positions that I've accomplished. So always look out for mentors. There's always a lot of us out there that are trying to help the next generation. We're trying to teach what we've learned from our experiences, hoping that you don't have to struggle as much as some of us did to get to the positions that we are in.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Victor. So I'm going a little bit off script here. Uh, you mentioned that to look for mentors, and I think a lot of people that are, in the journey to success, I feel that not enough people ask for help. Why do you think that is? And how cool can you like kind of give,
Sure.
I guess, your willingness or not willingness to share what you learn and what could we do to become more approachable as leaders or as people that are already in a certain stage of our life for those people coming behind us?
Or it could be several factors why folks don't take that step uh, to take advantage of potential mentorship out there. Some of it is it could be personality. Sometimes we're shy. We're shy individuals, especially some of us that were not born in this country. We have a very hard time assimilating to the culture, and we're very shy, and that's a really difficult mountain to climb for some of us. But eventually, once we reach the top and we feel comfortable, we're able to communicate and talk and really express ourselves, right? Um, I didn't have that luxury of being born in the country, so I didn't learn a word of English until I was 9 years old. So between 9 years old and college, right? You're still in that. I was still in that development stage where I couldn't express myself, right? I could express myself language wise, but I couldn't express my thoughts as well, and I couldn't express what I was thinking as well. So some of it could be personality, some of it could be experiences, and some of it could be that there are folks out there that they think they have the answers to every question, and they're not willing to humble ourselves sometimes, and really listen to what's out there and see what's around you. I tell myself the world does not revolve around you. You're just a little tiny speck in the world, right? And the world is just a big place, and you can learn so much from people out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry. Can I just jump in here real quick?
Yeah, of course, man.
Just because we got such a great leader in Victor, and one thing is you yourself knowing to ask those questions, to be curious, but how do you motivate and inspire your team, and how do you build your team to basically build a winning A team? The Newark Housing Authority has a lot of responsibilities,
Right.
and I'm just wondering, how do you manage that gargantuan mission that you keep making efforts year after year? So how do you really attract and build that team and continue to have success year after year?
Yeah, Alex. So, just to tell the audience a little bit about myself, I mentioned that my family fled El Salvador in 1985, December of '85. I remember there was a civil war going on, so we had to quickly leave the country, and we ended up in snow-covered New Jersey. It was 100%, total change. I was fortunate to have a very loving single mother that really taught us the value of loving each other, loving family, and loving everybody, right? Loving your community and the people around you. So that was the base. That's my base to this day. The base that I follow and the values that I have. I grew up in West New York after we came over to this country. That's in New Jersey. For some of us that may not know that, right across the Hudson River from Manhattan. Uh, so those were my formative years. After that, I got the opportunity to attend Montclair State University here in New Jersey for my undergraduate degree in political science. Subsequent to that, I started in the workforce at a housing authority, what we call a housing authority. We can talk a little about what that is. We develop affordable housing and manage affordable housing. And then in the middle, I had the opportunity to go to graduate school, and I ended up attending Rutgers University and getting a master's degree in public administration. So, and in the middle, I decided to get into politics a little bit. I was a council person in my community in West Orange now, where I reside for 2 terms. I was council president for 2 terms as well. So I spent 8 years as an elected official. So, it's been a little bit of a journey. Now, you asked to your question about my professional career and the Newark Housing Authority. In 2017, I got the opportunity to switch from Passaic Housing Authority, where I was the director of housing in the city of Passaic, over to the city of Newark, which is the biggest city in the state of New Jersey. And they have a housing agency, which is the 10th biggest in the country. In the United States, we have over 500 employees. We have over 10,000 apartments that we manage with staff. And we also operate a Section 8 program of 6,200 families participating. So we service over 30,000 people in and out. Now, as it relates to my leadership team and how I manage, I like to motivate by my actions. I like to lead by example. I'm a person that's motivated. I'm always hands-on. I understand the pulse of what's going on, and I like my executive staff, to see that. Right. I mentioned earlier during this podcast that I'm very detail oriented. Right. I like my staff to be detail oriented as well and understand the job functions well. Now, how do we get to that point, Alex and Carlos? And you guys know this. You catch folks at the interview process, right? I don't do your traditional interviews. Tell me a little bit about yourself. What do you know about this company? No, I ask unorthodox questions. So, if you were in this type of situation, how did you handle this? Right? Tell me a little bit about what are your thoughts on whatever public issues are going on. Like you try to get a little bit into the personality of people to understand, whether they're motivated, whether they're aware of their surroundings. You look for those skill sets that really make a strong leader. Anyone can learn from a book, but in order to become a leader, you really have to be well-rounded and understand the community around you, your team, right? So that's what I try to do. I try to make sure that during my interview process, I look for that extra skill set that will make my team effective. Um, that's been successful.
Wow, very nice. And I think that gives a lot of value to the audience, Victor. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, because we all, especially in leadership, we all want to build this great team, but at the same time, it's how do you do it? And it could become very costly because you can make mistakes in the hiring process. You can hire one wrong person, and then that person kind of tends to take the direction of the organization in a different way than you want to. So
Sure.
definitely thank you for sharing that. I actually learned something from that. So I appreciate that.
Sure. Well, thank you. And Carlos, yeah, sometimes we move into companies or organizations that already have an established culture, and we have to change the culture. That's a heavy lift, right? And as leaders, we are asked to change that culture around. And I've come across the folks that cannot keep up, right? They cannot keep up on the pace. They cannot keep up with the benchmarks. They cannot because the culture was different or the expectations hadn't been set. So at that point, you're going to struggle a little bit at the beginning when you're a new leader or a new director or a new boss or in whatever business you're in, because you have an institutional culture that you need to address and ultimately blend to what you see as, or what has helped you become successful.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. So, Victor, this is our podcast, The Business Trap. Basically, what we like to do, a lot of our guests, is for them to tell us about some of the traps that they fell in their journey to where they're at right now, and what do they do to overcome that, and what advice would they give themselves if they were to have to do it all over again. So, can you share perhaps one or two of the traps that you fell in this case, leadership trap, or even business? Because I believe that in order to any organization, in order to run it effectively, it needs to be ran like a business, because otherwise, it's basically the same structure.
Absolutely, Carlos. And I would start off to answer that question by saying that whatever career paths we decide on, you have to follow your passion, right? Because it cannot be a job, right? It has to be a passion. It has to be something that you enjoy doing. It's not about a paycheck, right? It's not about banking and being able to have all this capital and all this bling. It's not about that. It's about a fulfilling a passion and going through your career, your life, right? Your path in your life and doing something that really excites you and that you really have a good time at it. I tell people the money follows, right? If you're doing something that you enjoy, something that really drives you, then the money will follow. So don't be too concerned about making that bang and check, but really worry about finding something that you really enjoy doing. So in terms of traps, right? Well, that could be a trap. Don't forget that
Yeah,
could
yeah.
absolutely be a trap. But in terms of my experience, I'm a very humble person. And, I mentioned that I consider myself, or we consider ourselves, small specks in this world, right? I don't want to get into religion, but we're children of God, right? We're just one child over of billions, right, and generations and historically, right, if you want to go back. So I'm a very humble person, and sometimes people can sense that as a sign of weakness, right? So and I've had experiences like that in my life. Folks have taken me for granted. They write you off, for whatever reasons. It could be that you look a certain way, or they have a certain perception of what they see a leader of being. We live in a very diverse country, and people have this preset perceptions, right, of what this leader of the housing authority should look like, or this owner of this franchise business should look like, et cetera, right? So um, I've ran into situations where I haven't fit the mold, right? Yet I'm effective, but I don't fit the mold, right? And people have challenged me, right? They have challenged me either politically or they have challenged me policy wise. And the way I overcome that is by really knowing what I do, right? I'm going to tell you, I know what I do and I do it well, right? and I feel confident about that, right? And it's grounded on the fact that it's a passion for me. It's a passion for me. It's what drives me. So I've overcome those situations where folks can write you off or not give you the time of day, but by really understanding my business, right? And whenever you're challenged either politically, you can easily counter that. And then as they teach you, right? And have you ever read that book, 48 Laws of Power, right? Um, you have to be once you have the upper hand, there's a certain way that you always got to carry yourself a certain way, right? You have to professionally lay down the sword, right? But sometimes you got to step up and really show people that you really know your stuff, So that's been an issue for me several times in my life. And you go to a country club and they see you and like you don't look like the other folks around you. It's uh, the fact that I know myself, the fact that I know my business helps me be confident to feel and know that I belong in that room just like anybody else.
So Victor, what comes first, the confidence or the knowledge?
Um, to me, the now you have to really master your skill, master what you know, right? And then knowledge comes not only from mastering your skill, but from experiences. Then you become a knowledgeable person in what you do. So really master your craft. And how do you do that? At the beginning, ask questions. Learn a little bit more. You have the folks that like, that work, 9 to 5 or 8:30 to 4:30, right? And at 4:30, they're by the time clock, waiting to go out, or by 5 o'clock, they went to leave. I stay after hours because I want to read that memo, that I would have left for tomorrow, or I want to know more about that memo. I'm a kid that grew up in the library. Like when I was a kid, I used to enjoy hanging out at the library, right? My friends knew where to find me. I just love reading and learning about this world, about like random things, right? That it's just the way I'm wired, right? So but to the average person, just try to go above and beyond, and slowly you start gaining, that knowledge and that understanding of your craft a little bit better than the next person, and then be confident, that you can do things just as well as they can or better, right? You get to that point.
Awesome. No, great advice. Learn your craft. That's
Yes.
awesome.
And that can help you overcome any obstacles. And to the original question, any obstacles. If you know your craft, you're going to be okay no matter who's trying to bang you in the head.
Nice. Nice.
Nice. If you don't mind, can I jump in real quick, Carlos?
Sure.
Yeah. So, Carlos, as you know, and I'm also a part of his team now at the Tropical Juice Bar. We're always learning, and we learn from the leaders in our space. So Howard Schultz from Starbucks, Denny Mayer from Shake Shack, etc. And we're always keeping up to date the details, right, with how this fast casual space is changing. But I'm curious, is there a leader in public office, and this could be anyone from a former president to a local official, that you look up to and you not want to emulate, but you say, "Wow, I need to think like that guy or that woman."
Mhm. In
And
public
why?
office,
Why is it that you admire this person and keep an eye on that? Yeah.
sure, absolutely. I've come across, just talking public office, right? Two folks that I kind of
Or,
notice,
or you know
how they.
what, Victor, take it anywhere you want, honestly.
Sure,
Yeah,
sure.
I'd love to
And
just get in your mind and see
sure.
how you
I'm going to
think.
tell you one of the first persons that really, in terms of a public official that I was really taken back by, and that was Bill Pascrell. Bill Pascrell is the congressman in the 8th Congressional District. He's a former mayor of Patterson. He grew up in Patterson, right, in a working class community, and was a high school teacher. And then he got into public office. He got into first the New Jersey State Assembly, then he became a mayor of Patterson, and then he was a congressman. Congressman Pasquale has got to be about 88 years old now. 88 years old. And this past week, I had the pleasure, and I've known Congressman Pasquale for 25 years now. I was an intern to his office when he, during his early terms. And he looks great, man. 88 years old, and he's still fighting the good fight. Now, what do I admire about him? Bill Pasquale has a connection with people. Like, he doesn't forget his roots. So when he's down in Washington, D.C., making global policy, making fiscal policy, he's a part of this committee called the Ways and Means Committee. He's a very powerful, they're in charge of taxation. They're in charge of revenue
for
and
for
expenses, right?
for the entire country.
For the entire country,
Yeah.
correct. And globally, right? It also affects, our standing in the world, right? The financial position of this country, which is to me is the greatest country in the world. Again, that's for some other conversation. But he's there representing the folks that live in his district. He never fails to talk about the people in his district. And when he comes to the district, he talks about the policies in Washington being discussed, but at the level of the people, right? He doesn't talk over people. He has this emotional and strong connection. I call it the human factor. He's got this human factor that I always admired about him, and I always use that as a as a benchmark. And Alex, you remember I asked you who's your audience, because I want to be able to connect with your audience, because I follow that component, that human factor. I don't like to talk over people. I want to answer what people are thinking, from the perspective of the audience, from the perspective of whoever's around the table. I want to be able to properly message and communicate the subject matter. Bill Pascrell's got that, and I never forgot about that. And to this day, we were at a convention last week on affordable housing. He was receiving the Legislator of the Year award. He still has it. He still made a connection and talked to us about specific examples of what he thinks about when he's down in that seat in Washington making decisions for us. So that's very admirable. Another person that I came across in my life is his name is John McKeon. John McKeon. He's an assembly person in the 27th Legislative District here in New Jersey, and a former mayor of West Orange, which is where I live. I had the blessing to become friends with John. He met me a couple of times, and one day he asked me, he says, "Hey, I have an opening in my staff. Would you like to be my chief of staff?" And I said, "Chief of staff?" Now, chief of staff is the person in charge of his office and his entire operation, right? This was in 2003. Now, think about that. This was less than 20 years of me being in this country and not knowing a word of English. Yeah, I have this powerful legislator and mayor of West Orange asking me to be his chief of staff and work on policy for the state of New Jersey. I'm like, that's amazing that somebody, thinks of you at that level, and they're willing to put their trust in you to get the job done. You don't want to disappoint. But what I admire about John was that John is a family man, 100% family man. Never forgets about being home at the end of the night, right? Past 8 o'clock, you're home. Very successful attorney, very successful litigator, right, in his professional life, and in his spare time, he's an elected official. Now, people think of elected officials as that's a full-time job, but John taught me at an early age. I was in my early 20s at that time. He taught me that politics is not a career. Politics is an opportunity to serve people, right? It's an opportunity to serve your neighbor, is an opportunity to serve your township and make decisions for the common good. It's not a career. You should think about developing a professional career, and then if you can serve your fellow men and women, then you run for public office. And I never forgot that. And whenever I see an elected official, I say, you know what? This person's a lifetime politician. Have they ever owned a business like Tropical Juice Bar? Have they ever struggled? Have they ever have to fill out tax paperwork, or, have had, live paycheck to paycheck, because their business is not doing well, right? I always think about that component. And those are lessons that I learned from Bill Pascrell and John McKeon in my travels through the public sector and the public world.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's awesome, and thank you for sharing those stories, Victor. Because I'm sure that a lot of us, I'm gaining a lot of value just listening to you tell those stories, and what you have learned throughout the years from those great men. I want to thank you so much for being in a business trap today. Listen, what you gave us today, I feel very humble and appreciative of everything that you have shared today, because it helps me elevate myself, my thought, my mindset, because I feel that there's so much distraction nowadays that people forget that first work on yourself, on your mindset, and then everything will come. You need to have the capacity to handle and receive your blessings. So again, thank you so much for being part of the business trap. I'm really glad that you were able to make some time to be with us today. Thank you, Alex, for putting this together. I know Alex does the work. He does the behind the scenes stuff. And I look forward to having you again in the show, Victor, if you would agree.
Absolutely, Carlos. And I like how you summarize that. I appreciate that. Yes, this has been. Um, I had a good time. It's been it was enjoyable for me as well. We don't get an opportunity to share stories as our life stories, and some of these could be powerful. It can really help motivate, hopefully, members of the audience. So we can get into that a little bit deeper in the future. I'm always around. And Alex, thank you again for inviting me to be part of this podcast.
Yeah, thank you, Victor. I know you have stories for days. So in the near future, we'll jump into those stories. I'm sure everyone can learn more out of it, and just it'll be entertaining for us all as well. So thank you again, Victor, for coming on the Business Trap podcast.
All right,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank you so much for tuning in. This is the Business Trap. Until next time, take care.
Take care, everybody.